Well, hello there. YusefWateef back in the game. I don't want to take up too much of your time tonight. Thank you for stopping in. But I feel like it would be unfair not to talk about this because of some things that have happened to me over the past few days. You see, I want to talk about one of the unsafe places in Sao Paulo, Brazil, because I love talking about Sao Paulo, my new home, things I enjoy, all the great things that this city has to offer. But there is a reality to any large city in the world, well, any small city, any large city, any city in the world, especially one like Sao Paulo, Brazil. And that's that there's one place that I found that is consistently dangerous. Now, and I'll go through a few of them, but I live in an area, close to an area downtown, referred to as Central. It's the middle of Sao Paulo, Brazil. And it's where, if you come to visit me, if anybody stops to hang out, that's probably where we're going to meet. I'll say meet me at Geopolitical. Geopolitical is a enormous meeting ground. And I'm going to show you Geopolitical Square. It's a place where everybody goes. It's got a lot of things around it. And it's just generally, it's a cool place. It's got a lot of old area. It's got a lot of new things to see, but it's also one of those places that drastically changes after sunset. It's like the freaks come out at night. And I want to be clear. I know I'm going to catch some flack about what I'm going to tell you about Geopolitical Station. Where's another place? Say Metro. These are areas that during the day are fine. They're places I have no problem telling you, meet me here, let's go there. But whenever you're in the center of the city, whenever you're in the middle of the city after dark, it changes drastically. And I cannot stress that enough. Sao Paulo, Brazil is a place where we have access to some of the most fun, most diverse pieces of entertainment, art, music in the entire world. The trade-off is, well, where is it? The trade-off is it's usually in the center of the city. What else draws the center of the city is, unfortunately, that's where the homeless live, and that's where the people who have problems. Now, those problems may be manageable problems, like being homeless. I was going to say simply being homeless, but it's not a simple issue. Those problems could be alcoholism. Those problems could be drug abuse. In any case, it's not my job to try and diagnose and save everyone or suggest that you do the same thing either. What I am here to tell you is that when you go to the central area, when you go to any of those downtown areas, here's what I want you to do. Actually, we got a friend popping in. Let's see. It looks like Dr. Chris is going to be joining us. There we go. There we go. Whenever you're going someplace, particularly if you're new to the country, particularly if you're one of those people whose Portuguese is not perfect because mine isn't perfect, it's important to say, hey, will it be after dark when I get there? And where are we going? Because if it means spending the $5, $10 to get an Uber, 99 taxi, any of those things that make life easier, I want you to do it. I want you to go ahead and take that train all the way to the station, get off, and take a taxi or an Uber that extra 5 blocks. Why? Because it's not worth it to be accosted by some homeless person. It's not worth it to have someone who, and I say this as a coward, it's not worth it to see some woman with a baby on her tit with her hand out asking you for money, and you don't know whether or not to stop and give her a few dollars or not, because what if it's a setup? What if when you reach into your wallet, somebody clubs you from behind and just takes it all? this is not a common occurrence. As a matter of fact, it's kind of rare. But I don't want you taking that chance. Not in a city like Sao Paulo, not in a city where you literally have someone from everywhere and everybody's got an agenda. And 99% of those agendas are fun. As a matter of fact, there's something I did called, I'm going to show you this, survival. You know what, Dave, Brother Dave is in the chat. I sent you a link. I hope you can come up and say hello to us. Dave hasn't been by in a while. I'm going to show you something. I did a video about apps. Let's see. Yeah, survival mode, apps for Sao Paulo. That's where you can get some of the apps you'll need, like the 99 Taxi, which I don't even know exists anywhere else. Apps you can download before you arrive. Boom, boom. Brother David, we can't quite hear you. Hey, there you go. What city are you in?
Fort Worth.
Fort Worth, Texas?
Yes.
All right. What's the temperature out there?
60, 50, 60.
Wow.
Fahrenheit.
Well, well, right now it's 80 out here. So
it's summertime.
So I don't know whether.
Nice.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, our winter in Sao Paulo, Brazil is not really that bad. So I don't know, when you were out here in Sao Paulo, did you have any of those experiences in the evening? Because over these past couple of weeks, I keep running into friends and expats who are having these negative experiences going outside of train stations, not observing what I would call basic, I don't know, you're ex-military. What do you call it? Situational awareness? Is that it?
You know, I've visited Sao Paulo.
Dave might be having
Bahia, and can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Yeah, I stayed in Sao Paulo. Was a short visit. I lived in Rio and Bahia. I think Rio is a lot more dangerous than Sao Paulo, personally, but that's just my opinion.
Oh no, Rio is definitely a lot more dangerous.
I actually got lost in Rio by the stadium on the north side of Rio. I took the wrong bus. I had limited Portuguese. And it's kind of a funny story, but I basically didn't know where to go. I didn't ask anybody anything. I just kept taking random buses to my destination. But one of the things I noticed
you just got on. Wait, let me go back. So you get off at the wrong station in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, one of the most just crazy places in the world.
No, I was on the
and
bus,
you just jumped,
not the train. Right.
And did you ever stop and say, maybe I should just take a few dollars for this?
Well, I didn't. Well, yeah, this was some time ago, and the Uber wasn't that popular, and I didn't have a phone with Wi-Fi and all that, so there was no Ubering or anything like that. I was a 6 foot tall black dude in Rio, in northern Rio, so catching a cab wasn't really an option for me because, you know, just like they weren't used to seeing someone looking like me catching cabs. I gotta tell you a story about the ball in Bahia. Also, I had this laptop, and it was my laptop, and they didn't think it was my laptop. I'll have to tell you that story some other time. But anyway, so I was I got lost, and basically, as a gray man theory, you know, I just blend in. I was in a very poor area, and I just started looking like everybody else. I have a prosthetic tooth. I took my prosthetic tooth out, took my shirt halfway off, and I said, okay, I'm in Detroit and I'm lost. What do I do? So I found some young lady that looked like she was going to work, or was a maid, or some young man looked like he was going to work, and I simply patted myself after them, and I followed them on the bus and switched buses. And next thing you know, I was back in I ended up back in Ipanema.
Well, let me back up for a second. I don't want to go too far off the reservation. You mentioned something that I think I understand. I may not be sure, but you might want to break this down for the other viewers. You said you used something called the gray man theory.
Yeah, there's a whole, if you're into espionage books or into books on military tactics, in plain sight. So it's basically the art of blending in, looking like your environment. And that comes from part of that I learned up from growing up in the city, Detroit. It's how to be great, man, how to realize that you're not in a safe situation and you need to blend in and look like everyone else. You need to look like a local and not a non-local. And it gets elaborate. I mean, they have all kinds of theories and tactics and things that you can do, but you know, I don't get lost as much, but I've gotten lost when I was younger in foreign places, and I was able to use some of those gray man tactics to survive. Now, fortunately, I was in a place where people physically, the places I got lost at, I was in places where a lot of people physically looked like me. So I wasn't in, let's say, South Korea lost in a bad neighborhood. Um, I was in countries where there was enough diversity, or I got lost in several places in West Africa, Lagos, oh boy, all kinds of places. So, but I was able to blend in and use those gray man tactics to survive. But I agree, what you say is very, very smart, very wise with Sao Paulo. As a matter of fact, the time you saw me in Sao Paulo, the cab dropped me off at the wrong place, and I didn't really know where I was going, though I was in a pretty decent neighborhood. But the main thing I learned was walk slow, walk deliberate, and act like you look where you're going. And, just ignore folks. And you figure out what the body language is, what the distance is, what the conversation is like, and you just go on. Now, I can tell you this, Yusef, and I don't know, but not one person, when I was walking to the particular place that I was staying in Sao Paulo, not one person, not one homeless person asked me for some change. Nobody asked me was I an American. Nobody asked me anything. And I think for me, the gray man theory, or I call it the tan man, worked great for me because I was able to walk around in this big city. As a matter of fact, I walked to the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu studio that I trained at. I walked to it. It was only a mile and a half away. I walked to it, and I was walking at night here with a gi slung over my shoulder, walking in Sao Paulo, looking like a local.
Wow. Now, I'm going to tell you why I can't figure out how to pull this gray man theory off. I've been here in Brazil for 4 years. I'm still told consistently by friends new and old that I don't look at all Brazilian. I got into an Uber. I had my earphones in. I was listening to a podcast that I want to discuss with you. And he said, he's driving. He looks in the rearview mirror. He's driving. He looks in the rearview mirror. At the stoplight, he turns around. He looks at me. He says, "Você tem a hora de gringo? It's no brasileiro, sim?" He said, "You have the aura of a foreigner." And that's when he used the word "aura," because it's the same in Portuguese and English. He said, "You have the aura of a foreigner." And I was just in the back of an Uber with earphones in, with my glasses on, and a plain tank top. Well, maybe not plain tank top. I wear superhero tank tops. But it just blew my mind that I still give off that stink.
Well, maybe you're not needing to blend in. Maybe you're in an area where you can be comfortable. You are in an international city of Sao Paulo where people are from all over the world. So this particular driver, if he asks 50% of the people that got in the Uber, "Are you a gringo?" And then let's be honest, how many black Brazilians are taking cabs everywhere? I don't know. In Rio, it wasn't a lot. When I went into banks, there wasn't a lot of black folks in the banks. I was always jacked up when I went into the bank in Rio. In Bahia, I was jacked up in the bank by security. So, and then the use of, I mean, what are you wearing? How are you carrying yourself? Are you speaking English? There's a lot of little subtleties. You would have to really study the general populace environment. You would have to dress like them, smell like them, look like them, features like them, all of those things. When I was in Ghana, that was very difficult because I couldn't blend in. People would ask me what tribe I was from, and they would say my swagger was different or my haircut was different. They were really very easy to tell that I wasn't from there. But when I was in Nigeria, though, if I didn't open my mouth, I just kept walking. So It all depends on what you do, and of course you use that gringo to your advantage. If you readily admitted that you use that gringo title, that gringo weight to the advantage. And let me ask you, is it odd as a Black American being called a gringo? That's kind of odd.
Well, here's what I was going to say to some folks that I was talking to on the original topic of when you get off these buses and trains, maybe you got lucky getting off that bus and being able to go bus to bus, but there are tips that I tell people that may not necessarily be specific to just Sao Paulo, Brazil, but I always say things like being in the first car or the last car is always kind of weird because there are people, I don't know if you saw that viral video where a guy was in there with these expensive headphones on a train, sleeping. The train doors opened up and it was the last car. Somebody walks in, reaches, grabs his headphones, and booked it off. So some people believe you should be in the middle of the car. When you get out,
all kind of
look
tactics.
at the street.
There's all kind of theories and tactics. I mean, it's a whole science. You can get into the gray man theory, and you can go really off into the deep wells. You can basically do a PhD dissertation on how to have situational awareness. I mean, most people are unaware when they're in comfortable areas. I got robbed in my hometown because I was just, guard down. I'm at home. I'm walking around. Boom, gun in my face. Give me all your money. So, when I'm overseas and like when I go to London, I am so antennas up about knife attacks that I am positioning that I am always whether I'm on the tube or in a position, I'm always thinking about what the guy has a knife. How do I, what distance can I angle myself so where I can protect my major organ, making a pre-plan, having a dummy wallet, all of that. This is London, England.
Well, wait, let me back up. A lot of people don't know that London has a knife attack culture. My goodness. I mean, I had no idea.
Don't let the British accent fool you. London has got some serious hood, and they will take it to your behind. So
people don't understand.
And London, they know when you open your mouth in London, they know, oh, you're not from here, are you?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, London is a place where, just like America has a gun problem, some people would argue that the knife problem is actually even worse. Matter of fact, I'll show you something that I saw, because a knife is so easily hidden, so easily crafted, and the biggest part of this constituency is they have young people knifing each other. 10 charts on the rise in knife crime in England and Wales. Total knife crime offenses in England and Wales. Look at that.
No. Now London is serious now. You have to be on your P's and Q's. So, when I was in London, I was always aware of where I was going. I paid attention. I did the train theory, all of that. I did those train subway theories, be in the middle of the car, middle of the pack.
Here's another one. When you get out, here's a question. Some people want to know, okay, is the street when I get out busy or not? And does that affect my safety? Is it more or less safe to have a busy or empty street when you get out of the subway, in your opinion? Because in my opinion,
the theory is that if there's more people, then there's less chance of someone doing something because of witnesses and or other people would jump in. That's all changed now, because you can show up videos of somebody getting beat down and everybody just walking around ignoring it. It's an individual decision. You have to know where you're at, what kind of neighbor you're in. Are you in an industrial area? Are you in a commuting area? But the biggest tip is simply looking ahead. It's like if you're driving. I took a course in driving called the Smith course, and it was basically looking between 4 and 5 seconds ahead and actually predicting accidents and seeing situational awareness things. And it's the same as you approach that subway stop. Are you looking out at the stop? Who's standing around? Where are the people going? Are you looking where are you going? Are you looking ahead of time? Are you making plans in case, oh man, I don't feel comfortable? Am I going to go to the next stop? Am I going to go back? Am I going to go up? What am I going to do? Because when someone is trying to, I remember one time, this happened in America, but I was pumping gas, and a guy walked up to me, hands in his pocket, hoodie on. And before he said anything, I said, "Hey man, you got some change, man? I just got out of jail. I need some change." And the guy looked at me and turned around, and man, didn't know what to expect because I surprised him. I took him out of his element. I spoke to him first, and I spoke to him not with some fear. I spoke to him like, "Hey man, hey, now I could have time. The way this guy was walking me, I said he's about to go down. So I'm going to flip the square on him." And I threw him off. I threw him off his game. I threw him off his pattern. It's about establishing patterns.
That's what it is. That's what it is. It's just like in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. When someone has a pattern, I suspect the same is true of boxing, although I don't have experience in boxing. When you can recognize that someone has a pattern, and apparently the fighter Anderson Silva, acclaimed mixed martial artist, he would spend the entire first round learning your footwork patterns, your hand patterns, so that he could disrupt that pattern when he fought you. So he didn't necessarily, he could appear faster than you were, but in fact, he knew where your leg was going before it got there, so it looks like he's superhuman.
But, you know, as I say, I agree with your first part. I wouldn't recommend people took a motorcycle taxi to a myself. I would never myself. I would never recommend doing that. I would never recommend doing anyone taking the risk that I took. But if you find yourself in that situation, gray manning and using those tactics are a way that you can take yourself out. And you're absolutely right. Don't be so cheap with $5 or $10 not to take that Uber or cab, or no, when you get on the subways, deal with straight lines on the subway. Don't get into those routes that be twisting and turning, and you got to reverse and then walk 8-9 stops to another stop. Just forget it. Go to a stop that will get you close and take an Uber. Make your travel point to point, which leaves you very little gap of standing around. You're always traveling. You're always on the go, and just doing those things.
And I would also say,
talking loud.
Cash is king. When you're, no matter what you're doing, getting a ticket for the train or that Uber, don't have a 50 that a taxi driver might have to stop at a gas station to get change for. Have a couple of tens in your pocket so that you can either, I keep a 5 just in case I ever have to jump on the bus. Keep that 5, and this is not an emergency tactic. That 5 says, "Hey, I don't have to worry about."
And another thing is that when you're
you're bouncing out your connection.
Instead of have a money clip with fresh bills, have some balled up ones, some balled up dollars that makes you appear that you don't have a lot of pulling out dollars. No, I was saying have some ball and you pull it out. Let them see the balled up ones. Don't pull out a money clip with fresh bills right out the ATM, and they're like, "Oh, pull out some balled up, some raggedy looking bills," and be shaking your head like, "Man, they'd be like, 'Man, this dude is broke,' because these are looking, get someone that's going to be easy and get someone that's going to have to do robbing somebody and they ain't got no money, and now committed a crime."
Now here's something that I that throws people off.
You might get caught.
Your internet is a little shaky, but I want to tell you something that I do
in Brazil. The Brazilian cops close. They're just executed.
Two things. One, your internet connection started to get shaky, but two, one of the things that I do that throws people off is that if I have to wait for my Uber inside the train station, or sometimes they push you out, I look for the security agent and I stand 1 or 2 body lengths away. There, I said I look for the security guard, and I don't stand so close that it looks awkward, but I stand 1 or 2 body lengths away so that I don't think you really want to take the chance that you got some trigger happy security guard because you decided to get clever and try to rob somebody.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, Yusef, and also, man, your stature, man, Yusef, you know, you're how much? All right, so tell everybody how tall are you and how much you weigh.
I am 5 feet 6 inches tall and about 220 pounds.
So you're built. So you're literally Mike Tyson. You're built like Mike Tyson walking around. So someone is going to be like, this dude might be able to rumble, man. I might pass. So you know that plays a factor also. You know, people look at you size up and be like, okay, if this guy gives me resistance, he may pound me into the ground. Now you could be a paper tiger, you could be as soft as a paper machete, but people look at you and be like, man, this guy's got a bald head. He's got the Jacques Cousteau mustache. He's wearing a muscle shirt with superheroes on, and he's walking around with kettlebells. You know, I think I'm gonna go over there to that little petite girl over there because this might be bad news for me. And you might be the most cooperative victim. You're like, you might be the most cooperative victim ever. But those are the things that, you know, people look at and be like, you know, I'm 6 foot, 200 pounds, you know, dark with the Amish looking beard. I might have a kufi on my head or some kind of crazy, you know, cats are looking at me like, he might be robbing me. So,
well, you know, what you said about being a paper tiger is right. And I want everybody watching this to know, the minute somebody threatens me and says, give me your wallet and your phone, I'm going to hand over and smile. I don't have anything worth getting shot or knifed over, and neither do you. If you're watching this right now, and all the things that we tell you about being outside of a train station or a bus station at night where it's dangerous, if all that stuff doesn't sink in, let this sink in. It's just a phone.
Well,
it's just a wallet.
But let people not mistake that if push comes to shove, you know, and I've grappled with you on the mat, Yusef will break you in half. He will put you through the ringer. So he's right. He's a nice guy. He's gonna turn real wallet. You're gonna have a 5'6", 220-pound kettlebell you didn't do going banshee on you. So, you know. So yeah.
You know, Dave is always on top of my kettlebell. Kettlebells are like my I would call kettlebells my weekend lover because I do a lot of good old fashioned weightlifting, but kettlebells are my weekend enjoyment. I do it because kettlebells offer a lot of diversity. They work muscle groups that a lot of them don't. If anybody here is on my Instagram, you'll see I got a lot of kettlebell pictures up of me doing different things with my kettlebell and having a lot of fun with that.
I want everybody to look, and I said, does that look like a paper? I said, here's this guy with kettlebells, like making videos of him doing kettlebells, drinking a smoothie and smiling at 5 a.m. I'm telling you, if somebody's looking at me, I'm going to hit YusefWateef up. I'm going to rob him after he gets out of his workout. They're going to be like, no, you know what? I might have to go hit that old lady coming out the time.
So, but here's my question. And this, you know, it's just me and you. I think it is safer to be robbed in Brazil than in the United States. And I'm going to back my theory. In Brazil, if I get robbed, I'm 99% sure he only wants my money and my phone. He's not going to do something violent if it's at all avoidable. He doesn't want to kill me. In America, people are pulling the trigger first.
Well, it used to be like that, but now people are just shooting anyway. There was a crime that happened in Detroit. It was all over the news. So this gentleman had a backpack. He walks into his home, and a guy pulls behind him. 2 kids pull out with an AK-47, and they took his laptop. He gave him his laptop, his wallet. He was very cooperative. And as they were walking away, they just shot him. They shot him. He fell down, and then a neighbor from across the street saw it, and he had a concealed handgun license. He came out and fired shots at the teenagers, and they drove off. But the thing was, so this guy had a security camera. Thought of this. But the thing that was bizarre about it is this: people were saying, well, "Why did he shoot him? He had a clean getaway. He was masked up, and he did the perfect rapper. He hit it and left. He got the equipment. You know, the guy had like a Mac laptop. He got a very expensive Mac, some money, but he's gonna fire a shot. So he elevated himself from a robbery to now a somebody on the street with a AK-47, which is gonna elicit an even greater response from the authorities. So the logic behind it, I don't know. I mean, somebody got to drop the logic behind it. You know, if you're going to be a cat burglar or a thief or a robber, wouldn't you want to be smooth, hit it, no, nobody get hurt, you get with your materials and just move on? Why would you turn it into a brazen shootout? Because when that guy fired a shot, that alerted someone else who had a gun, and they could have got it. And he fired into a car, so we don't know if he hit him. Did he hit somebody? But now you got a car driving around with bullet holes with a description with two witnesses. And so now the police have got the helicopters and the dogs and the surveillance video. Now they're on you. I don't understand that at all. Somebody has to explain
it. And where do we go from here?
Well, America's inherently violent. It will only get worse and get more violent. There's no putting the genie back in the bottle. That's why when people talk about crime reduction and theories and all this, reducing gun violence, I just started laughing. It's the culture.
Well, reducing guns will not change the number of people who want to kill someone. It does make it harder.
Well, not to get into that's a whole different discussion, but the logistics of trying to collect all the guns in America and put them back into the
okay, yeah, you're right. The logistics. What we have to do is we got to sit down and talk about this. Is a podcast I was talking about earlier. It was called "It Could Happen Here," because people always say it could not happen here, meaning a civil war in America, and it's done by a journalist who spent some time in the Middle East, and he wrote what he thought was fiction about the United States devolving into civil war. And he sent it off, the script and some writing about it, to a bunch of people in the military. And he was hoping that somebody would say something funny about it or tell him how foolish he was. He could put that in his little description as, "Hey, General Joe-and-so called me crazy butt." And the most shocking thing in the world happened is everybody replied to him and they said, "That's interesting." You know,
well, so I take issue with that whole theory. When you say civil war, the only thing we can reference is the Civil War in the 1800s, which there were clear dividing lines, clear marks of territory. The Confederacy had established another state and a currency.
Right,
They had separate uniforms. That kind of civil war is not ever going to come back. We're talking about an asymmetric civil unrest, where you might have bombings and shootouts here or there.
And he said it's going to come from the triggering point is going to be the police overreact to someone on the extreme left or the extreme right. We don't know. The police are going to overreact and kill somebody. It's going to ignite the hate. And what he said is it won't be like that. It won't be people standing in line with guns and different uniforms. It's going to be people escalating violence. And it won't start with someone starting by shooting another American. It's going to start with small acts of sabotage. By the way, speaking of sabotage, the one thing people can do to sabotage my channel is not to click the subscribe button. That's important to do. Click the subscribe and a thumbs up. We've been doing great. Right now we're at 892 subscribers. People popping in for different reasons, coming in and enjoying the chat. So everybody who's watching, make sure you share this on your Facebook or your Instagram or your LinkedIn, and make sure you click the subscribe button.
Awesome.
But one of the things he said was, what if somebody went to Northern California and blew up one of the freshwater pipelines that feeds the Southern California food markets? We don't know. He said the average person doesn't know that one pipe getting blown up at the right spot could throw our economy into a little bit of a wobble. Nothing big, but 1 week without water destroys millions of dollars of crops.
By an individual or a group?
All the group has to be is two people who know how to put a bomb together.
Well, if it's, yeah,
and he said
if,
the
if
reason
it's an individual, yeah.
Well, he said the reason it's going to. Go ahead.
Go ahead. No, go ahead. The reason.
He said the reason that it happened that way is because the first act of the Civil War will not be an American shooting another American. It will be someone doing something they consider to be nonviolent protest that causes great harm and will escalate from there.
So kind of like Charlottesville.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's interesting. I mean, it's you know, so people are going to say, well, why hasn't it happened now? And despite so far, the United States government and its institutions have been pretty robust. They've been able to have these peaceful transitions of disagreement, quote, relatively peaceful transitions of disagreement and so forth and so on. I'm not judging whether it's right or wrong. I'm just saying the ability for it to survive and to kind of go through these crises. But this is one of the biggest crises ever that has faced this country. The Constitution is being tested. Is it theory or is it real? We're actually going through an impeachment. I had to actually break out the Constitution and read it because I was like, man, I got to get refamiliar with my civics. Social unrest. We have the power of social media, racial tensions, political tensions, class tensions. Uh, the media is just completely, each media source is just completely biased and they're open about it. They like, we don't care no more. You got citizen reporters that's kicking butt, people social media that has as much following as traditional media sources. It is literally, there's a wealth gap that's tremendous. There's a student loan crisis. There's a health crisis. It is a tremendous amount of pressure on the United States as a country, as an institution, as a government right now. It is a lot. It is being tested, which is a good thing. That's another discussion, but it is being tested, and we are going to go through this coming up election cycle, and impeachment, and all this other stuff that's going on, and this military action in Iran, and all this other stuff. We are going through it as there's so much going on. And the people are being put through the stressors and how people react. And as you say, there could be a trigger. There could be another Alabama church bomb. There could be different triggers that happen, and they're happening. We recently had that synagogue attack in New York by some radical group, not what you think it is, by some radical group, some mentally ill or who knows, racist person. I don't know. We've had a lot going on right now, and there'll be a lot of testing of stressors. People are splitting up into they're balkanizing into their groups, and we're gonna see what happens. I'm sure you'll be down there in Brazil watching with popcorn.
Well, there were a few times when your connection broke, but I heard what you were saying when you talk about how things are going to evolve and escalate in the United States. And, I probably won't be there in the United States. And I encourage everybody to, before it becomes, let me rephrase that. If you're someone who already believes it may get worse before it gets better, consider what you might need to do to leave. To go someplace and say, you know what, I'm just going to establish myself someplace else if it's an option, just in case. Maybe nothing happens, maybe it does. But it's going to be a scary situation.
Yeah, it's going to be a mess because it's going to be a mess anyway because this next election cycle is going to be just so bizarre. and we'll see how the country reacts to it. I mean, it on a positive note, it could go through this process, and it could the government institutions that are set up in theory may work. They may be able to work. We may really truly have three branches of government instead of one branch. I don't know. I don't know any of the answers to this because I'm not an expertise on it. I'm just sitting up here observing, and like everyone else, I'm struggling to keep up with all of the information overload that I'm getting in from all kinds of different sources. I'm just trying to filter those things out. You know, where do you go? Where do you go for good information on anything? You know, I can't believe anything that anybody says. If I read an article on Bolsonaro and him supposedly quote unquote clowning in Brazil, I don't even know if I can trust that source. I would rather listen to Yusef and your friend over that. So that's a crisis when you can't even believe anything that you read or hear or see. Is it true? Is it doctored? Is it fake? Who knows?
Well, for those who don't know, Jair Bolsonaro is the president of Brazil. That's him. Ex-military. I don't know anything about his military record, but the one thing that's the most interesting about him is that people who don't like him and people who do like him can agree on one thing, and they can't dispute. They said he didn't change to be who he is politically. People who don't like him that say, well, everyone says this of every politician they don't like. They say he's crazy. Everyone who says he's crazy said he's always been the same kind of crazy. And finally, the government came around to him. Dr. Chris.
Hello.
There he is, the math doctor. I remember Dr. Chris. How are you?
I'm good, man. How are you guys?
You gotta have Dr. Chris on the show and talk about quantum computing. We gotta have that discussion one day.
Man, I don't know the first.
The end of the world. None of us do. Skynet will tell us what it is.
Were you able to listen earlier to what we were talking about?
Let me ask.
Unfortunately not, but I'd love to hear about it.
Let me ask you this. Let me ask you two guys this to start the discussion on. Is the potential of an America that will not be a world dominator or a world manipulator or whatever you want to call it, is that scary to you guys that live outside the country? How do people feel about that? You know, a different type of America, an isolationist America, an aggressive America, a leader assassinating America. I mean, is that scary to people? People are like, man, whatever, man. I don't care about that.
You're saying like a softer America?
A softer?
Yeah, I think.
What do you mean that does not intervene as much into other countries? Is that what you mean?
Yeah, like we say, man, whatever, man. Let we just want us, and you know, whatever they do. Yeah, I mean, that's where we're going. We're going to this more or less isolationist type of world view, a multipolar world. Some people say multipolar, multi-regional. You know, I mean, come on. The United States has bases in over how many countries? Do we have military bases? How many spheres of influence are we using our 13, 14 aircraft here? It's ridiculous. I mean, troops everywhere.
It costs a lot of money as well.
It's crazy. It's you know, is it the Roman Empire or am I just imagining that?
Yeah.
That's a scary one.
To be honest, as a non-American, I see the role that America played like in post-World War II. If it wasn't for the United States, the Russians would have just run over Europe, basically. I mean, why not, right?
Right.
So I think there's a balance there, but I think that's what's missing. When Russia existed as a superpower or a threat, things may be balanced somehow. But now we don't really have that. Even China is more of they're just kind of observing and building their resources. United States is still sort of posturing, but no one's really threatening, I guess.
we don't have what you would call a worthy adversary to justify all the military.
Yeah.
Well, I guess
mean,
China would be the next boogeyman.
or Iran.
It's going to be very hard to prop up.
You know, America.
Guys, how did you? I mean, I
Yeah, the
watched
numbers don't know days.
video.
It may have.
How did you get from places to visit in Sao Paulo to United States military? That's an interesting jump.
Well, we talked about safety and
Okay.
going through what to do and what not to do. Well, here, I'll give you a quick rundown for the people who may come in later. We were talking about what I said is the places that you need to avoid in Sao Paulo, Brazil, are the trains and buses stations at night. To spend the extra money to get where you're going to go, take it from the train station, and if it's any place in Central, that's what I mean. I'm talking, say, República, all those downtown areas.
Yeah.
You know, make sure you look at your exit. Make sure see if the street is busy or not. Call your Uber from inside. Go out later. Carry exact change.
Fair enough.
Stick, not necessarily uncomfortably, but a little closer to a person in uniform and go ask them for directions. Make sure you know where you are going, but I always advocate spend the 5 or 10, go direct point to point, get a bus or a train wherever you have to go, and as soon as you get off, have already called your Uber and get right inside, even if it's a 4-block walk. Because the place to avoid in Sao Paulo, Brazil at night are the train and bus stations. But I think that could be true of most major cities all over the world.
Probably.
Because then Dave brought up the UK knifing problem. You know, how most Americans don't know it's just... Is that a thing in Scotland where you're from?
It used to be. I mean, where I'm from, Glasgow is a post-industrial city. So there was a lot of kind of post-industrial poverty and a lot of knife crime. I heard my friend in Scotland's father, he used to work in the central morgue. And he said every football game between the two biggest teams, minimum 2 people would be stabbed to death. And it's a city of a population of about up to 1 million. So for 2 people to die every Old Firm game is quite a lot. It was a big thing. And I don't know why it stopped, but at some point it just stopped. And it seems that London now has this huge knife crime problem.
Wow.
I don't know what changes that kind of that violent subculture, but I think it's maybe just opportunities and distractions.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's opportunity when you're going to commit knife crime when you don't have anything better in life.
Yeah, I guess. It's why would you stab someone?
It's the same problem with the
American. Yeah, London has some issues,
Yeah, I mean, it's really expensive for one.
Well, think of it this way. The American mafia has the same problem that the Japanese Yakuza has. A lack of enrollment. Why? Because young men have more of an opportunity now, so they don't have to do it anymore. I don't know if you remember this, if you've ever heard of a man named George Cole, and he murdered a man named Harry Uzoka.
I don't know that story, no.
Well, get this. Apparently, and they're in the UK. I'll show you their picture. 2 men in the UK, young men who were both of all things models, right? Apparently, they had some kind of altercation, and there was going to be a fist fight. One of them brought a knife and murdered the other guy.
Oh, man.
Threw his whole life away. How old do you think that kid is? Maybe 25?
He looks younger, man.
So, yeah, his whole life gone and murdered. And like he was a legitimate model. Like he was a working model.
Man, that's insane.
And,
but the guys who killed him, I guess they weren't as successful, or they were jealous or something.
No, that's the guy I believe that he killed, is this guy, Harry Uzoka.
Man, that's so weird.
Yeah. He just knifed them, which is just.
I'll say one thing for the UK. We have a history of settling violence with sort of fistfights and stuff. It's pretty easy to see people punching each other. Stabbing each other is another level, but it relates.
So yeah, we were just talking about safety. Hold on one second.
Sao Paulo is not the safest place, but I think people exaggerate how dangerous it really is. Like in general, as you said, there are spots to avoid, but all in all.
But I don't think, now here's the thing: are the train stations and the subway stations the safe places there, or are they the places where the bad guys congregate?
Yeah, I mean, I have an instinct to just avoid certain places here, and to be quite honest, I think the economy isn't doing as good as it was. I'm feeling that I see one or two people with that desperate look in their eyes every day. And in the past, I didn't really notice that. So I think it's even more cause to take care and get an Uber, a taxi or something, just avoid these weird places. Even like talking about safety, Villa Madalena, that's considered kind of bohemian. You can easily get hit by a car there if you're just wandering around, because people drunk drive like crazy in that neighborhood on a Saturday or Friday. Super dangerous.
And for those who don't know, I'm going to show them all Villa Madalena. Villa Madalena, you're right. It's kind of bohemian. It's not a place where I go because I guess I've just never been, one of the cool people. That's Villa Madalena. But you're right about the drunk drivers, people going down and just tearing up the streets, and with that firm belief that it's okay.
But the police don't do anything, so it just reinforces that, doesn't it? I mean, that's my opinion, at least.
I wish you had been able to come in a little earlier.
Yeah, I just wasn't able to.
No problem. But Dave had to go, and I've got to get off. It's been almost an hour, and I wanted to really cover the basics. We talked about some things that we're going to definitely go into later, especially a podcast called It Could Happen Here about American civil disobedience and civil war.
I've listened to it.
You've listened to it? Right.
Yeah.
We're going to come back and talk about that pretty soon.
Great.
So we'll make sure you're in on that. All right?
Fantastic.
All right, everybody. Listen, I got to get a good night's sleep because in case you guys didn't know, I personally don't get a check from YouTube. If they want to give me a paycheck, that's fine. I'm happy to take it. But for those who don't know, I run editing, copy editing, proofreading. If you have everything from a book to a paper to anything that has to be done up to a resume, which is something I do commonly, that has to be done in university level English, catch me on LinkedIn, or you can send me a message here. This is the business that I run. This is what lets me travel the world, live in Brazil, and I've done a good turn for people. I always say that if you catch me on LinkedIn, do not look at my resume first. That's fine if you want to. I want you to scroll all the way down and go all the way to recommendations, because that's where you're going to see what other business professionals have said about me and my ability from all over the world. Now, after you read that and you have people say, hey, this guy really is who he claims to be, go back up, look at my resume. If I can do something for you, great. If I end up doing something that you may be able to pass on to a friend, I appreciate that too. Other than that, love you all, and I hope you have a great night. Thank you. Bye-bye, everybody.